right, you guys, welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. I'm Rick.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are here with our friend Brady from the North. He is our Canadian friend. We had him on a little bit a while ago. You guys might have remembered him talking to us about his experiences in Freemasonry. He joined a local lodge and found that there were some things that might have been a little off. And at the beginning, he didn't really know that there was an issue, and found out later on that man, there's some secret stuff going on behind those doors. And, you know, as we've done our research into Freemasonry, we know that there are origins going all the way back to England and Scotland. And these guys have been around for a long time. Freemasonry isn't a new thing. A lot of people just now are beginning to understand the depths and the complexities of it and all those things. And so we wanted to have Brady on again, just to talk a little bit more about Freemasonry, but also we're just friends. And we know that when we put this type of information out into the world, we know that there are these attacks that come at us, not only from human entities, but we also know that there are enemies that are unseen, right? We believe in an unseen realm here on this podcast, and we know that there are lots of things going on in that unseen realm. And Brady's been really attacked since this last time that we met with him. And we wanted to have him on just to talk about those things, what he's been attacked with, and how he's kind of overcome some of those things. So Brady, how are you, man? We've missed you.
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. We saw you on a couple of other podcasts.
Yes,
you're moving around. You're talking to other people, which is awesome. And man, it's hard for us to hear that you've been having a hard time, but at the same time, there's been a lot of growth that's come from it. Why don't you explain what's been going on?
Well, it's funny that you bring up the other podcast too, because every podcast that I've been a guest on, either the day of or the day before, there's been car problems. And so it was shortly after I was on your guys' show the last time. Justin from the Prometheus Lens and Dig Bible podcast, he and I had gotten in touch, and I actually did his show as well. Mm-hmm. And I believe it was the day of the podcast. I actually had a massage booked. I was like, it's my day off work. I'm going to get all nice and massaged up. And all of a sudden, I'm sleeping because I worked the night before. So it's probably about 8 o'clock in the morning at this point. I'm getting my phone's ringing off the hook. And so I'm sleeping for probably like a couple hours at this point. And it's my girl, and she's freaking out because her car is not working.
Yeah.
Her engine went the day of that podcast. And that was actually like a 9-week ordeal getting that engine replaced. And it's, don't buy a Hyundai.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of that with our Land Rover. So
it's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Our engine just blew on our Land Rover.
Oof.
And it was kind of out of nowhere. The same kind of similar deal. So yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. Like I hate cars. This is one of the reasons I got out of the trade,
Yeah.
And then yesterday, I'm driving into the shop to get my snow tires finally taken off because, I didn't actually even need them this year because we didn't get a winter for the first time in my life. And all I can hear is just like rattling as I'm driving. Like it sounded like the hook of a tow strap banging against the metal frame or something. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Get into the shop, get my tires changed over. And then I'm driving and it's doing it again. It's really loud. And then all of a sudden it's just, you hear it in the distance as I'm driving away because it fell off. And I'm like, I don't know what that was because I crawled under my car. Everything looks fine. I'm like, I don't know what the heck fell off my car, but something did. So I'm like,
No.
Great. Like I'm just anticipating something happening now over the next, who ever knows when. But it's like, It only ever happens when I'm about to do a podcast or I just did a podcast. Like it's the weirdest thing. But
we've talked about it before where we'll put out an episode and it's like doing really good. And then me and Rick are fighting. We are fighting. It's
we're
just
fighting.
It happens often. And
It's
now
crazy.
that we know about it, we're like, okay.
Yeah, you
now
kind of
see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how things like that just kind of pop up, right? Like,
yeah.
Especially with episodes like yours. And I don't know if you know this, but your episode has actually been one of our #1 episodes for a very long time. And I think it's mostly because of the topic. You know, a lot of people are very interested in these secret societies and what's going on behind these closed doors. But also, I think it's just because people connected with you and you had a very real story from a very personal perspective. We're not talking about some guy that's in Freemasonry somewhere. You know, we're talking to Brady with a very specific, and I guess that's why we wanted to have you on again, is just to show people that real people that have unfortunately been tricked into making certain oaths and things like that. There are real attacks that come from that, and when we put that type of stuff in the forefront of the collective consciousness, that's when the devil is not having it, right? There's this saying that, you know, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing as a Christian, the devil's going to be all over you. But if you're not, then he's going to leave you alone. It's pretty suspicious if he's leaving you alone, right? If you're not being challenged, if nothing is happening in your life that is challenging you, then you're probably not, you know, doing the right thing, because he's leaving you alone. It's the idea that the devil is always going to mess with the people that are going against his agenda, right? And so once you've gone against his agenda, you've really found out what he's all about, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, some of the things that have started to take place too, because he's not just attacking me, he's attacking the family, right? Like he's attacking my 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And is again something with the podcast, and I think it's because of the audiences, you know, getting bigger and bigger. More and more people are starting to wake up. More and more people are starting to get interested in these types of topics and these types of shows. So the messages are really starting to get out, and I think that the dark forces don't like that, obviously. And so every time I do a show, something happens with my kids. So he actually, I'm pretty sure I sent you guys a video about that. The one time. It was the night actually that we recorded.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was like right after.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it was the night that we recorded last. He comes in, now he has trouble sleeping. You know, it's a newer house. We've actually just been here for a year this past week. So at that time, it was still a relatively new house for him. So he would get up sometimes in the night. He would come and wake his mom up, and you know, she'd take him back up to his room and put him back down to sleep. But the night that we recorded, I'm laying there and I just had this overwhelming feeling that I'm being like we're being watched right now. And I've got dark blackout curtains because, again, Nighthawk. So sleeping during the day, I need the darker room. So at night, it's just pitch black in this room. And so I didn't want to open my eyes. Like I'm laying there, I'm like, I don't want to open my eyes because I'm like, I don't want to see what I'm about to see. But I do, and I look, and you just see this dark shadow. And it reminded me of the movie Paranormal Activity. There's a scene where the one character, she's just like kind of hovering over the couch, watching the guy sleep for hours on end. And he's doing that. Like he's probably got his face about 10 to 12 inches away from my girl's face, and she's laying in the bed. Yeah.
Probably the creepiest thing that could ever happen to a person.
Scared the living bejesus out of me. Like I was just like, what is going on? And so then what made it even weirder though, is I'm calling to him. I called to him like 4 or 5 times. No response. He didn't move. He didn't respond to me. Nothing. So I wake her up. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. Like it's not happening. Right. So I wake her up. She's trying to get him awake. And he's just in this weird, like, trance state that he's not responding, nothing. So she like had to basically drag him back to his room to get him to go back to sleep. And then she falls asleep in there with him. So I'm in the room by myself, like, and this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I can't go back to sleep. Like, so I literally stayed up until about 6 in the morning when the sun finally started coming up again. And I was like, okay, now I can go back to sleep. Now the sun's up. I was just like, you know, just one of the first times in my life, you know, at least my adult life, that I was like legitimately afraid of the dark.
Yeah.
Like, and then it was after doing the Prometheus Lens show with Justin, I think it was the night after. Do you ever watch those videos, like those ghost hunting videos on YouTube? And it's like you see, like, oh, caught on camera, peeking out behind a door, and it's just there's this head, and you just see this black head poke out, doing this. So again, I get this feeling like, wake up, and so I do, and again, it's like pitch black, and the door that's behind me there, it's open. We sleep with the door open, and I just see this black shadow head tilt in, tilt in,
and you're just like, nope.
I'm just like, I'm not having this.
I've seen this movie.
But then here's the weirdest thing about it was she gets up and goes up to his room. He's out. Like within the 30 seconds, like out like a light, like he hadn't woken up. And he doesn't remember any of this. Like you ask him about it the next day, he doesn't remember it. And then everything was kind of quiet for a while after that. We went out for a walk one night, and it was like this mist, like flew like right through me kind of thing. Like I jumped back, and my girl was kind of looking at me like I was crazy. She's like, "What the heck was that about?" And I'm just like, "You didn't see that?" Like, okay, like let's just keep on, going on here, and then and then all of a sudden the kid starts having like night terrors, and I'm talking screaming bloody murder night terrors.
Gosh, poor kid.
And the one time that I asked him about it, he was having a dream about being on a plane, and a monster had taken over the plane and crashing the plane, killing him. And it's like, so again, kids have vivid imaginations, and I understand that. And one of the things that I've been trying to do a lot of on my journey is, okay, like not everything is demonic.
Sure.
Like not everything that happens in life that's bad or, whatever is demonic. But when it's the timing of everything that I'm just like, I can't, it's really weird timing. And then again, because I work nights, there was an incident, I guess it was back in September, I think it was, shortly after we filmed the last one, with you guys. And I was at work. I got to work 3 hours late on my first day because I got promoted at work as to a lead hand. And it was my first shift as that new position. And there's a traffic jam on the highway into work, which my drive is normally about 30, 35 minutes into work. I was 3 hours late.
Jeez. And
I'm at work for a couple hours, and all of a sudden I get a message, like a 911 message to call. And I was like, oh, crap. So I call her, and I'm like, what's going on? Well, the internet had gone out, but the internet went out because the modem was soaking wet. Now, my modem is installed above my electrical box in the basement. There was water dripping from one of the air ducts that runs across the top of the basement ceiling, I guess.
Yeah.
Just dripping. The only spot in the entire house that water was dripping was from this one tiny little, basically bend in the air duct in the basement that goes up through the floor into the wall somewhere. And it's literally dripping directly on what would have been the electrical box. But what would happen was it dripping right down on top of the modem, soaked the modem, but didn't drip from the modem. The modem soaked it all up. So it's this weird thing that it was like, I just looked at that and I was like, God had my back.
Yeah.
Because I'm at work, she's at home by herself, notices the internet goes out, goes down to check on it, floor's soaked, modem's drenched, but the electrical box 2 inches below the modem, bone dry. But everything around the electrical box, floor, the wall, modem, soaked.
That's wild.
So I looked at that and I was like, whew, like, praise the Lord, because had the modem not been there, like, I wouldn't have a house.
Yeah.
That would have shorted it and, started a fire. And again, she's home by herself. So if the internet hadn't gone out, she would never have gone down to see what was going on and know to put something there under the drip just to make sure that nothing does get on it, right? So it's like, and to this day, we still don't actually know where the water even came from. We have an idea, but it's never happened since. So I'm just like,
yeah. And how do you fix something you don't know anything about? Where did it come from? You know,
right? Like,
that's so
never
wild.
happened. She's like, well, I took a bath that night, and I'm like, but he takes a bath in the same tub all the time.
Yeah.
And it's never happened before and never happened since. So I'm like, you know, it was just, again, the weird timing of it, you know. It's,
a lot of weird coincidences. And, you know, we don't really believe too much in coincidences around here.
No.
Because things happen, you know, like you said, around certain times. What is it that they're trying to do to silence you, to keep you from getting this message out? You know, are they going to get rid of your internet so you can't go on podcasts anymore? Are they going to, you know, mess with your cars? Are they going to, you know, try to get you fired by, you know, having a traffic jam just in time for you to be late on your first day to your big promotion? You know, all of those things are not coincidences to me. Those are blatant attacks, you know, based on what you've been doing, which is exposing these secrets and these lies of this secret society that is demonic. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know, just because we're talking about Freemasons and you might know somebody that's a Freemason doesn't mean that they're all demonic. We talked about that in the first episode. And not that everybody is a bad person, but there are these levels, right? We did get into that. There's lots of levels. And once you go higher up in those levels, there's a lot more oaths, a lot more that you've hooked yourself to into the darkness. And so when you've seen these things happen in your life, how are you responding? Because I know we've talked offline. You're really getting into the Bible nowadays. You're really praying nowadays.
Every day.
And so what kind of things have you put in place now? And have you seen these things kind of stop happening now that you've been a little more in the Word, or has it been kind of consistent still?
They come and go, and they change their strategies. The devil's smart, man. Like he's the
been
king
around
of
a long
deception.
time.
Right? Like he's but I pray 3 times a day minimum. You know, I'm always talking with God constantly. Because there's things that I still battle with, you know, personal things that I still battle with that, you know, I need his help with. And
sure.
So I'm constantly talking to him. And like, you know, we were saying before the show, like all the music I listen to now is just all kind of Christian type music. There's a lot of Christian bands out there that are really good. I had a preconceived thing that all Christian music was corny. But then I started digging into some of it, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, some of these metal bands that I've listened to for years, I started reading their lyrics from a Christian standpoint, and I'm like, holy moly. And then I actually started researching the band. I'm like, oh yeah, they're all Christians. Like it makes sense. And so I was like, oh, okay, you know, there is good Christian music. So anytime, like I can't even listen to like music that swears. Yeah. Like if I heard a curse word, it's like skip. Like I can't do it. There's just something in me now that every time I hear that, and I'm guilty of it. I'm a knuckle dragger, right? Like I swear it's one of the things that I'm still trying to work on, but I can't, you know, so I change it. I change up that, but so I'll pray. I use the Bible, you know, Ephesians 6. I for some reason still can't memorize it, but you know, I have it on my phone. So I'm constantly, you know, doing that. Every, you know, morning I pray that, you know, my eyes opened up, and every night I pray that my eyes are going to sleep. And, I pray for protection throughout the night, not just for myself, but for my family. And, you know, that's just kind of my method, and I just put it in God's hands, to be honest with you. Which is practical
things that can be done. Yeah.
And it's hard as a human, you know, like we want to be in control and do things our way. But for certain things, I've just given up and let God deal with it. You know, pray for God to help us and protect us. And, you know, that's it. I let him do it. I let him do his thing. I've stopped trying to fight things, you know. It gets you nowhere. You're not going to win that battle.
And that's the hard part, right? Is complete and utter submission to a God that is there is no tangible, he's unseen, right? And for a lot of people, we see him in everything, right? The Bible says you can see him in the seasons. You can see him in nature all around. You can see him in the sky. I mean, basically God is in everything. So when you're looking around, you're seeing him. But for us, a lot of us, especially myself, we get so self-consumed within our own boxes and our own lives, right? Our house, our cars, our things. And we begin to realize that we've got it all under control. Right. And we got a job and I got a car and I got this all figured out. So what you're saying is we have to find a place or you have found a place to where I don't have control over certain things in my life. I don't have control over the traffic. I don't have control over my son having these night terrors and things like that. There are certain things that are just out of our control, and there's nothing that we can do about it except give it all to God. Just rest in the knowledge that he is bigger than all of our problems, bigger than all of our circumstances. And that's really difficult for us to do, especially us knuckle draggers, because we're so used to having a problem and just fixing it, right?
Yeah,
I know how to fix that, or I can figure it out. Yeah. And God's not wanting us to do that all the time. Now, I would say sometimes he wants us to do that. He wants us to take control, take charge, get stuff done. But I think there's certain times in our lives, and we have to realize as men, that we have to step back and submit like a child. He actually says, come to me like a child. And that's really difficult for us because, we're men. And we're hard-headed, But when you do come with that sense of humility and just saying, God, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do with my son's night terrors. Like this is above me, but it's not above you. So could you handle this for me? I don't think that that's outside of. I don't think that that's weakness in a way that some people think that it is. I think it is knowing what this world is really all about and who's really in charge, right? Once we figure out who is really in charge around here, that's when things start to change, because we stand on that truth and everything around starts to begin to fall in line, right? He makes our path straight.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that too, because it's like, you want to submit, you want to give, like, the Lord controls it. Jesus controls it all, right? It's, and you want to give over that control, but at the same time, you can't just sit there and do nothing, right? Yeah. So you've got to take the guidance and like that saying of, God helps those who help themselves kind of thing, right? So it's like, you got to take action towards certain things. Like, I mean, they'll put things in your way to guide you in that way. And, one of the greatest things was Vicky Joy Anderson. Okay. Right. So love I her. Reached out. Shout out. Yes. You guys had her on, and I ended up like engulfing all these different episodes of other podcasts that she was on. Yeah. And then it got to the point that her and I actually sat on the phone for over an hour and talked. And so some of the issues that I was dealing with my son were some of the things that we discussed and how to go about, just dealing with that kind of stuff. And then I something for whatever reason, like, again, I think that the different denominations within Christianity is just a way of dividing us all even more. And I had my own personal things against the Roman Catholic Church and the way they do things. But that being said, something kept popping up, confession. Confession just kept coming up in my life in all these different ways. So I just said, okay, if that's what you want, that's what I'm going to do. And I ended up going for confession. It was the first time I'd been to a confession in 20 years. Yeah. And so, and it wasn't even in the stall. Like the priest opened up the church for me, and we literally just sat there, because I had sent an email to set everything up. And, we sat there and I just kind of went through everything with him. And it was the first time I'd ever heard a priest from a Catholic church talk about oaths with because I mentioned about the Freemasonry and things like that. And he talked about, you know, the spiritual warfare that comes with that kind of thing. And so we had a really good conversation, you know, and so that was one of the things. So it's like, once you submit and you ask for help, you go for that, you know, you come, you know, on your knees and ask, you know, with humility for help. He's going to put people and things in your way to help you.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's one of the good things about shows like yours, is that the community that it builds. A year ago, we had nobody.
Bro, I got goosebumps when you were talking about Vicky Joy Anderson talking with you about your son. I got goosebumps just because that's such a powerful connection that was made only by God. And the fact that she had the heart, and obviously because she's such a great person, but she had the heart to talk with you and to be able to do that is so amazing. And like you said, the community that we're building as a real church, right? We are a real church. For somebody to sit down with you and just say, listen, I have this knowledge, you have this problem. Let's put those two together and we'll figure this out. And, you know, a lot of people are confused when it comes to confession and stuff like that. People think that, you know, going to confession is not confessing to God, it's confessing to man. But the Bible does say to confess one to another your sins. Confess, get it off of your chest. You know, we don't just confess to God, we can confess to each other. And you know, the context of Roman Catholic versus being in a box versus sitting next to him on a pew, all of those different things. I think we have to realize that not everything is bad. We're very quick to be like, oh, Roman Catholic bad, oh, confession bad. You know, like there are good things that can come from these practices, which is relieving that stress off of your own spirit, you know, because when you hold this stuff in, even if you do confess it to God, you're still holding it in from your greater community, right? And so if Jesus is asking us to be in unity with one another and we're not confessing our sins, our deep secretive sins to each other, then we're not actually connecting with each other. We're being superficial, right? And Paul talks a lot about that, you know, just being a superficial church that doesn't have anything to do with the depths of each other's lives. And so that's so cool that you made that choice, because even with, you know, the Roman Catholic Church, I have a large problem, mostly with the head leadership. I mean, I don't have problems with local priests or anything like that. I don't even know a lot of these local priests. My biggest problems is with the leadership, you know, with the popes and the black nobility and all of these secret guys at the top. Those are where my problems lie. But
which is in every denomination.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, you go to the higher ups of all these organizations and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. They're all part of the same team. But I think that Satan uses that as a weapon, not talking to each other, because there's so much that we share in common, you know, struggles and things but we feel isolated when we keep it to ourselves. So it's like, why do we do that? I don't know. But, you know, there was another thing that I was listening to the other day, and it was a gentleman talking about the spoken word. Like, so when, you know, God was creating in the beginning, he spoke and things were created, right? So there's something in the spoken word. So I've been trying to do this praying out loud thing, which Rick knows I'm terrible at this. I hate it. I'm not good at. I'm always like, it's just not my thing. I'm not an out loud prayer person.
I agree with that. But, I mean, to be fair,
but if you do it, I do feel like there's something when you speak the words out loud. I don't know if it's the vibration or, you know, whatever it is that happens, but it's different. You feel different after praying out loud. I don't know.
See, my challenge with that is if the devil and his forces can't read my mind, and I want to have a private conversation with God, because only God can do that. That's why I pray silently, because I don't want them to hear what I'm talking about. Because if they hear what I'm talking about, they're going to use that against me. So that's true. For me, when I'm praying out loud, if I do, it's just more generic for me. Like, but that's just my own, you know, my own crazy thing. That's the way that I've looked at it. because they already have enough that they can use against me. I don't
totally
need any more. Right? So it's like,
especially when you think about these, these forces of evil, they don't just know you, they know your family, they know literally all the way back. So they're like, oh, this tactic worked for her great grandma. Let's try it on her and see if that 100%. Works.
Yeah,
because they've been around forever. They know your whole family history.
Yep.
We actually ended up finding out that going through, so I have a great grandfather on both sides that were Freemasons. Oof. And one of them was, what was it called? A worshipful master or
worshipful
something?
Master, yeah.
We ended up finding like a little pin with his...
Did it have a different symbol than the normal Mason symbol?
It did, and it had his name, and it had the year.
Past master?
Yeah, it was like this really ornate, crazy-looking thing. And we still have these, like, relics or whatever you want to call them. And I actually need to contact Vicky and see... what do I do with this stuff? Like, I don't want to just throw it away, but I don't really want it in our house.
Burn it.
So is there something that, because we did that episode with her, the Threshold Covenants, and it's like, just having this stuff in our house, is it causing a problem? Because, we have I have 3 biological boys, and my middle one, who is 18, has been really struggling this last, like, year and a half, 2 years, whatever. Like, mental health wise, just having a lot of issues, which I think, obviously social media and school these days plays a big part
just
of
the world,
but
the world in
I'm
general.
like, having this stuff in the house, is it causing a problem? Like, I don't know.
I mean, again, I don't want to say everything is demonic. However, I would say that it can, right? I still have some things. I got rid of a lot of the stuff though. Just because, again, with advice from Vicky and also advice from the priest. I literally told him about the Bible, the Masonic Bible, and he said, first told me, he's like, burn it and don't call it a Bible.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but now I'm like, it's like, I haven't been able to get rid of that yet. And the apron, like, those are just things that I'm just like, like, I don't know, there's some sort of an attachment there that I need to still break. Also, burning it is kind of hazardous. So I'm like, I don't really know. I don't want to throw it on a campfire. I'm going camping in a couple of weeks. Thank the Lord. Please, no fire bans. All my trips last year had fire bans. Like, this is insane. Like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. How am I supposed to cook my food? Like, it's funny though, because one of the things I keep seeing pop up more and more, and you guys just recently had an episode about it, which is the little season, right? And the more I hear it, I don't know why, but I've never heard about it until about 2 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden, every podcast that I listen to has an episode coming out about this topic all of a sudden, which in and of itself makes me wonder, okay, is this actually how it is? Because if this is just what's coming out more and more. And the more and more I hear about it, the more things that I read about it, it really does kind of make me think that we are in that little season where, because you just turn around and look at the world. Look at the state of this world right now. I saw a thing last night about all the different wars that are currently raging across the world. I think there was like 10 or 15 different wars that are going on right now.
Yep.
Then you've got all this other stuff that's going on with all the protesting. Yeah. And here's a funny tinfoil hat. Who's got the tinfoil hat on, right, for something fringy?
Yeah.
What was the date of George Floyd?
Oh, I don't remember.
May 26th, 2020.
Oh, May. Wow. Okay.
What's been happening?
Same thing.
What? An election year. They needed something. Yeah. They needed something. And now there's reports coming out that a lot of these protesters don't even go to these schools, that they're paid professional agitators is what they're called, or aggressors. I think is what the phrase is.
And they get paid like $20 an hour.
Yeah. And a lot of them are immigrants too.
Yeah, I posted a spreadsheet that somebody found on the Fringy chat on Telegram that is basically that this thing was planned since November 2023. The spreadsheet shows exactly where they're going, exactly what all is going to happen, paid agitators. If you look at pictures of all of the tents, because they're occupying, right? So they occupy, they put their tents up. It's really weird that they're all the same exact tent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The other thing too is there's actual data. I can't remember the name of it now, but basically they were given free cell phones provided by your tax money.
Praise the Lord.
They can be tracked by the cell phones, and so somebody was able to track where all these cell phones are. They're all at the colleges that are currently protesting. I think there was like 20 something different ones that had ticked off at colleges and stuff. So it's like, you know, everything.
If people think that these guys are really pro, you know, Hamas and really wanting to, you know, get their word out that they want these people to be free and they're pro, they're doing it wrong. First of all, by being agitators, right? Because they're not actually wanting to be Americans. And this is a huge thing for me, is like, if you're going to hold up another country's flag and say, you know, death to America, which is what a lot of their, you know, speech was, in a lot of their writings was death to America, they're finding, it seems like we should probably just take all those people and deport them to the, you know, whatever flag they're holding up, which I believe is what Elon Musk put on X the other day. It's like, if this should be mandatory. If this is your flag that you're flying, then go ahead.
Go there and fight.
If that's where you want to live, then go there. If you love it, if you love Israel so much, then go there. If you love these people so much, Palestine, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with supporting them, but you live in America and you're going to our own statues of like George Washington and stuff like that, and you're putting other flags on him, stickers of other flags on him, stuff like that. It's like, what are we doing in this nation? When did Congress start holding up Ukrainian flags and flying them around? It's like, well, send them to Ukraine. If that's where they want to live, if they love Ukraine so much, then send them there. Because what we're trying to do here in America is protect life and liberty. We love people. We love liberty and freedom. And what we're saying is those conflicts don't actually have anything to do with us. Those conflicts are nothing compared to what we've got going on here in America and what you've got going on there in Canada. We were talking about offline before we came on. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Canada, especially when it comes to gun rights and stuff like that, because we talked about that a little bit. And I know in America here, people are worried that we're going to get our guns taken away. But I mean, just tell us a little bit about how the guns work in Canada for our American citizens.
Well, they did just do a gun buyback program that's failing miserably, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, like every other thing that the Trudeau Liberal government tries to do.
Right.
But yeah, basically, we have 3 different classifications of firearms in Canada. There's non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited. Non-restricted are things like shotguns, you know, 22s, basically anything that is not a semi-automatic. So like pump action or bolt action or, you know, brake action, lever action type firearm. The restricted type firearms are smaller semi-automatics, and you're limited to a 5-round capacity of a magazine. And when it comes to any semi-automatic. Now, here's a funny thing. So with a non-restricted pump action shotgun, I can have a unlimited clip because it's pump action. But the second that I go to a semi-automatic, it's 5-round capacity max.
Okay.
Then you have your prohibited class, which is anything fully automatic, which is part of the buyback program, is what they're trying to do. And handguns. So you can't have a handgun. The only people that can have handguns in Canada are like law enforcement and people who transport money, like a Brinks truck or something like that.
So there's no self-defense whatsoever. And
there's no self-defense laws. So if somebody breaks into your house and tries to harm your family and you defend your family, you are the one who goes to jail. And they can actually, here's the funny thing. Somebody breaks into my house. I just finished washing my floors. They slip, fall, break their leg. They can sue me. Welcome to Justin Trudeau's Canada.
Nice.
Right? Gosh. There was another thing too. There was I don't know if you guys watch much of the news that goes on here, but on one of the major highways in my area, there was a vehicle driving the wrong direction, and there was a high-speed chase, and everybody's, you know, blaming the cops and all this stuff. But what they should be doing is blaming the government, because the immigrant who was driving the vehicle on the wrong way of the highway and smashed into another car, killing 4 people, including an infant, was out on bail. Because here in Canada, we have a catch and release policy. So basically, you do anything and you're out on bail. Literally. So Toronto Pearson Airport, International Airport, had a $22 million gold heist last year.
Jeez.
They caught the guys. The next day, the guy was pictured walking into the gym. They stole the money, the gold, melted it down, took that down to Pennsylvania, and I can't remember what other state it was. Bought up a bunch of what we would consider prohibited firearms. So like, I don't know what actual weapons, so I'm not going to name any off, but fully automatic weapons, a whole, like, basically van full of weapons, and then tried to get across the border. Not sure why, but they did. Obviously got caught and arrested, but then, the next day, like 12 hours later, the guy's out on bail. You know, it's like, the guy stole $22 million worth of gold, melted it all down, went and bought a bunch of illegal handguns and firearms and tried to sneak back into the country with them, and he's free.
It's wild.
You know, and then there's the home invasions have gone up like crazy. And I was saying, so people, Montreal has become the stolen car port hub of Canada. Basically, if your car gets stolen anywhere in Ontario, you can pretty well guarantee it's ending up in Montreal and then in the Middle East. Again, immigrants, and they have different ways. There's like we were saying before the show, there's that video of the Florida sheriff basically saying like, if somebody breaks in your house, you can shoot them. We prefer that you do. Right. Whereas here in Canada, in Toronto, our police chief told us to leave our key fobs by the front door because the burglars just want our car and they won't harm us if they can get our keys. It's like, are you kidding?
Just leave your wallet and all of your valuables. Just set them right inside the door.
You want my bank account and everything too while we're at it. Like, it's insane. So, it's definitely become a weird time in this country. And
that's like saying, well, they're just child traffickers. Just leave your kids out on the front porch and they won't come inside. You don't have to fight them or anything. They'll just take them.
They just want your daughters.
Yeah. And a part of it is because of the economy. Like our inflation's through the roof, our unemployment's starting to go up. Like we were talking, like even my work, you know, we lost 2/3 of our employees to downsizing right now. So it's just a really rough time in that sense. They keep bringing in, so we crossed 40 million population registered. Let me rephrase that. We crossed 40 million registered population in I think November or something like that, and then in like 6 months later, crossed 41 million registered. And then they project that there's about 3 to 5 million unregistered on top of that in the country. And then we have this whole student visa thing where we have all these paper mill colleges that are fake colleges that are literally bringing in international students. These people are paying all this money, and then the students are literally disappearing, or they're getting, full-time jobs. And it's like, I'm all for, sustainable immigration to help the economy. I'm all for that, doing it the correct way. But these, and I feel bad for these students because a lot of them are getting scammed by these, fake colleges and things like that. And it's like, so we have a huge problem with that. And, the housing market is just insane. Like basically what you guys pay, like I saw a comparison the other day. One of my guys at work showed me this, what you guys pay for, like it was basically in our rich area, what you can get for $1 million, you guys would pay maybe 80,000 for. I saw a comparison of a house. It was like $4 million here, and it was like 600,000 somewhere in Texas. And I'm just like, this is,
it's insane. It's insane.
We've talked about moving a lot of times because we're on the West Coast in Oregon, and a lot of reasons. We're just outside of Eugene, which is just not. It's kind of a similar idea. Actually, it's funny because I worked at the Lane County Jail. I was one of the intake nurses there, and it was like the running joke around the jail. If you want to break the law and get away with it, just go to Lane County because they just set you back out. So we had one day where we had a guy that came in, and we had to detox him off of heroin, which is a week-long process. There's medication, there's all kinds of stuff that we have to do.
Taxpayer dollars.
So we detox him off of the heroin. He gets released after 10 days, literally walks out to the curb where his girlfriend met him and shoots up right in front of the jail. And I'm like, what are we doing?
I'll do you one better.
We've talked about moving multiple times because there's just a lot of
Vancouver. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or I don't know if it was Vancouver specifically or BC as a whole. Mm-hmm. Last year, over 6,000 crimes were committed by just 40 individuals.
Oh my God. Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
Because of the catch and release. And our court system's so backed up that anything takes 5 years, just to even be seen.
Man, the court system's a joke too. And it's a joke.
It really is.
It's all a money-making machine. If anybody understands maritime law versus common law, it's a money-making machine. They made it that way on purpose, so that they get everything that they want, and we end up, with whatever handouts we can get at the end of the day. Yeah. But that thing about immigration is it's a hard one, because you got a lot of people that are like, well, Rick, these people need to come into the country because they're living a life of poverty and everything. And I get that. Totally, 100%. But they can come in legally. They can come in the right way. There's no reason for a person to lie or steal or sneak their way into a country if they want to be a citizen. If you want to be a citizen, then you need to go through the right channels. And I understand that the process is long and all of those different things, but America is pretty accommodating. I mean, we're giving these guys cell phones, we're putting them up in hotels, they're free literally these people have life better in America than Americans do in a lot of ways, or Canadians for that matter.
Same here.
Yeah. And it's shocking.
They get so many different benefits, like right down to the little things. Like I just saw a thing the other day that was being shared around on my social media about newcomers and immigrants to Canada get free access to all our national parks. Where everybody else has to pay for it. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like how, why? Like, I get trying again. I make sound coming off as a racist right now, but I'm not, I've got a lot of different friends, but it's like, I just don't understand, again, doing it the right way, and why is it that Canadians are worse off than these people that just come here? And it's, like I see people driving like, $90,000 cars, and I'm like, you literally just got off the plane like a week ago. Like, how are you going to, like, it's, and then again, it's a lot of their families that have come over too. But now we're starting to see a housing crisis to the point that you've got, like, there's, I don't know if you guys are on Reddit at all, but there's a subreddit called Slumlords of Canada. And it's literally just people posting pictures of apartment and house rental ads of these people like, hey, for $700 a month, you can share a bedroom with 3 other people. You get to use the bathroom and the kitchen 3 times a week. Like it's ridiculous, some of the stuff. One of them was like, you can pitch your tent in my backyard for $500 a month. Like it's insane what's going on in this country right now. This is why it's like the whole short season, like the chaos and everything that I see going on in the world, and the more and more, like the more and more I read about it, I'm just like, okay, like this is starting to make more and more sense to me, and then it was funny too, because there's a band that I used to listen to a lot back in the day. Well, I shouldn't say back in the day, more like, a couple of years ago, but one of their songs came up on a random playlist for me on Spotify the other night at work. And in this song, they have a clip from Alan Watts, and it's from his talk on game theory. And it's a really interesting, so I'm going to read it to you. So it says, the song is actually all about the Matrix, to be honest. When you read about it, it's about, I don't know if it's about specifically the movie or if it's just about the idea, but like the chorus, like the line in the chorus literally says, turn me into a battery, as long as I get to be what I want to be, which I think is the mentality of the majority of people in society nowadays, is like, I don't care. I'll follow. Just give me the fame and the money and all this stuff, right? Yep. I'll, make me a battery. I don't care as long as I get to be, rich and famous. But so the quote from Alan Watts in the song goes, it says, to say yes, it may be a game, but it's a ghastly game. It's a grim game. It's like a child who's caught a fly alive and is picking the wings off of it. The universe is that sort of scheme. It's a trap. It's the thing that gives you hope, always dangling possibilities in front of you to keep you going, but then it grinds you up. Then it revives you a little, like a master torturer, keeping a person alive in order to experience pain. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard that, I was like, if you replace universe with Satan, it matches perfectly to a lot of things that he does. You know, he'll dangle hope. You know, he'll dangle something that sounds like a good idea, but you know, that rumbling in your stomach is telling you, don't do this. Yeah. But it's like, oh, but this sounds so cool. This sounds so good. Don't do this. You know, dangling those possibilities, and then it just grinds you up every time you submit to the devil, and it's like it never goes the way it wants to go. It's like I've literally had one drink of alcohol this entire year. That was it, one drink, because I was getting to the point where it's like I was celebrating a beer, you know, too often, and I started to notice that myself was getting back into this old weird slippery slope. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, nope, it was New Year's Eve. I had one drink on New Year's Eve this year, which was like probably the first time in my life that I've only ever had like one drink on a New Year's Eve. So
that's crazy.
You know, awesome, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I know.
You know, it's a hard thing to do because, you know, we're not heavy drinkers, but we've drank, you know, in the past, and we got to the point where it's like, why are we doing this? You kind of have to ask yourself after a while, like, what's the point of this? Am I doing this because this is a societal norm? This is a thing that has been kind of rooted into our society, or am I doing it because I enjoy it? And a lot of times I didn't enjoy it at all. Yeah. I wasn't really having a good time. It was more of, you know, just you're doing it because that's what everybody else is doing. And that's a really slippery place to be in, right? As you said, it's a slope that gets you into other places. And not to say that taking drinks is a bad thing, but it is the, you know, Jesus is pretty clear that it's the being drunk that is the problem, right? It's being susceptible to other spirits that you get into when your mindset is like that. And Paul says, you know, to not be drunk on wine or spirits, but to be drunk on the Holy Spirit, you know, to be filled with the Holy Spirit instead, which is far better in his opinion. And I think when we do that, we realize that, you know, all of that was just a distraction. It was just a distracting game to keep you from focusing on what really matters: life, love, relationships, your children, all of those different things. And so it's cool to see that people are starting to make these decisions more towards God than towards themselves and the things that make them happy within their own lives. And you're starting to see a lot of this personal sacrifice happening within, you know, friends, within community, people that we know. You're seeing a lot of this where they're changing everything that they've known to be more Christ-like, because it's becoming more real to people. I think like you said, with the world being as troubled as it is, people are really drawing closer to Jesus because they're realizing a lot of these things are out of our control, right? Yeah. If I can hold on to, I mean, you just talked about like 10 different wars. How much of that can we even process or begin to manage? None of it. None. I can't manage any of that. And these protesters can't manage any of it either. They're trying to do something, which is agitate. But even protesting, what does it do? Nothing. These wars are going to continue to happen. These, you know, this child sex trafficking is going to continue to happen. This drug running, all of these things are going to continue to happen if we as a culture, as a people, don't stand up and say, we need to live for something better. We need to live for something higher, which is godliness and goodness and righteousness, as Jesus talks about. We need to be better to each other. And a lot of this child sex trafficking and even agitation and all of those things, that comes down to selfishness, right? These people are being paid to agitate on purpose. And that's all selfishness. It's an agenda. And those are things that we need to get rid of in this world. We need to burn all of that stuff down, because it doesn't lead us to being filled with the Holy Spirit and being in love with each other, right? Being friends and just co-creators with God, right? He wants us to be involved in this creation. He wants us to be involved, but he wants us to make it better, not worse. And we've been spending a lot of time making it worse I think it's time for us to finally wake up and turn around and say, you know what, we're not making it worse anymore. We're going to make it better. We're going to start building communities like we're doing, hopefully here on this podcast with you and with others, that we're making these communities of people that we can talk to each other when we have issues.
Yep.
We can reach out and say, you know, I'm struggling today. I'm feeling really negative. I'm feeling in a really negative place. And you can reach out to somebody and your whole day can be transformed just by a kind word or a few sentences. And those are the things that we need to be focusing on, because those are the only things that we really can control, right?
Yeah, I don't even know how to, what to add to that, to be honest with you. It was perfectly well put. Like it really was. And I think one of the things I would say was that a lot of the times, you know, God's messaging comes at its own time, right? Like it's not going to necessarily be, you know, when you want. And I heard this really cool phrase the other day on a podcast. It was a guy talking, had a pastor and his son on, and basically he was saying people always look for signs, you know, and I'm guilty of that too. I'm always looking for signs of, like, you know, what's coming, and everybody, especially like with the whole eclipse that was coming, I was thinking of like the signs. And so this guy was saying that he stopped asking for signs and started asking for Jesus to show him or make him aware of the signs that were already revealed to him that he missed. And, you know, because there's all this other stuff. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, yeah, like how much in my life have I missed? How many signs have I missed in my life? Yeah. And then that for some reason brought up, the movie Signs with Mel Gibson with the aliens and all that. And just the like that movie, like if I took nothing else from that movie, his wife dying, telling him to see, and then telling Meryl to swing away, had nothing to do with what was going on in that moment. But years later, when the alien invasion comes, those exact words were what he remembered and thought, oh, this is how we save my son who's in the arms of an alien right now. Yeah. It was literally, it made me, like, the thing that came to mind with that is everything in God's time.
Yes.
You know? So it's like, that's one of the things I still struggle with. You know, it's like, I need help right now. Like, I don't need help in the future, but I need help now, you know, but then God, like, again, you see God in everything. God reveals himself to you, you know, exactly when you need it. Yeah. You know, people and things just kind of happen. So it's, again, I find that it's, almost like that whole frequency thing, right? Like what you focus on is what you kind of see. So it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, and if you put your focus on Jesus and just let Jesus do his thing and guide you, you know, it's not to say that your life is going to be all sunshine and rainbows. You know, that's not until afterward when we're in the second heaven. But, you know, this is what you got to do in life. And I find that as long as you've got that going on, everything else you can get through, you know, as hard as that may be. So, I think like this world, you look around it, you know, like we're saying, it's just so many different things that are going on, so many different troubles, and so many different people hurting in so many different ways. Like it's, I don't think that, I think I truly do believe that we're in that short season right now, because it's just the way the world is right now, and Christians are just being persecuted like crazy, even in Canada. So here's the other crazy thing. So if you're Christian, stay away from Canada unless you want to come help us make things better. They've basically made it illegal now to quote the Bible. Like on social media posts or anything like that is one of the things that they're trying to push, to make it illegal to do that. Like literally like jail time. Like, if you know, and then I just saw a thing, I don't know which country it was, but they were literally rounding up Christians, jailing them. So it was,
it's coming down the pipe here in America too. I was going to say,
Rick just had an article that he was showing me about it.
Yeah, I just posted on the Fringy chat as well over on Telegram. There's, I can't remember the numbers, but it was basically like 360 to 90 something they passed in Congress that anti-Semitism, hate speech, and stuff like that was not going to be allowed anymore. And you know, I haven't gotten into the bill and what all it entails. I got to read through it, but I mean, just the fact that has passed in Congress is crazy, because according to certain people, the whole New Testament is anti-Semitism, right? Because if those people don't believe that story is true, then technically the New Testament could be anti-Semitism, because it says directly in there that it is the Jews that killed Jesus, right? And that's can be construed as anti-Semitism. When the Passion of the Christ came out, if you'll remember, I don't know if anybody remembers back then, but when it first came out, Mel Gibson got a lot of heat because of all of the anti-Semitism in that movie, which the movie was based on the Bible. So there are certain people out there that believe that the New Testament is anti-Semitism. And so it'll be interesting to see, now that that's passed in Congress, where this goes. Because they could potentially be outlawing the Bible.
Well, it's funny too, because I've never actually heard it like that in that sense, but it does kind of make sense in the way that you put it. And it reminds me of this conversation that my stepdad and I had. And it's funny because it's like, all these years, these last couple of decades, not being a Christian, being pagan, and then finally finding God, or God finding me, I should say. I thought that I could have like a good conversation with him, because we don't agree on anything. We couldn't see eye to eye in a staring contest. Like, it's just, we don't agree on basically anything. And, I love the man. He raised me well, sure. But we don't agree on anything. And we were having a conversation, about, the whole, alphabet, letter, and number people. And, he's going on, well, Jesus came and changed the Old Testament. That doesn't work in the Old Testament. Or the Old Testament is basically mute because of the New Testament. He's like, I've read the Bible, I know what it is. And I'm just like, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Like, it doesn't outright say it in the Bible, but I just think that's maybe because we shouldn't need to, in my opinion. And this is one of the things that I struggle with is tolerance, because I've always had a low tolerance for just basically anything stupid. So when people start coming to me with this whole ZZ, them kind of, I'm like, I try to be tolerant of the people and love the person and hate the sin.
Sure.
But it's I still struggle with that. But yeah, it just reminded me of that conversation, because I was just like, he goes on about how the Old Testament is basically, I shouldn't say mute, but like Jesus came and changed so much is the way that he does it, So I guess it's kind of the same argument in that way, right? It'll be interesting to see what comes of it, because, there's a lot of Christians in America, and there's a lot of Christians in Canada, and it's not gonna fly. And, you start rounding up Christians in America, they got a lot of guns. And so there's going to be a different problem that I don't think that they're anticipating. They don't want that fight, I don't believe. But I would almost say there's less Christians in Canada than you think, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Because of the mass immigration, for one.
Sure.
Like, our population's been completely altered. Our culture's completely altered.
Wow.
The Canadian culture's all but dead. And it's sad to see it like that. There were people burning churches down, and there was still churches getting burned, and nobody does squat. The news won't even cover it, because Trudeau's, got a lockdown on the news and everything. So it's like all these people that, watch the news, they don't pay attention to it. So I don't know. I hope that, I don't know how things can get better. I don't have the answers for a lot of it, but I just keep praying. Put it in God's hand, and I go about my day to day and do my thing. That's
all you can do. There's that verse in the Bible that talks about how he leads us through the valley of the shadow of death, right? And that we should fear no evil. And that on the other side of that verse, it talks about how he makes a table, a banquet for us in the midst of our enemies. And it's just such a weird concept, but making a banquet for us, just picture us three right now, sitting at a table, having brunch together, laughing, joking, enjoying our time with Jesus. And you look around and there's just evil everywhere surrounding you. You're completely engulfed by your enemies. But he says, I make that banquet for you in the midst of your enemies, because they don't matter to him. They don't matter. They shouldn't matter to you. They shouldn't matter to anybody because they don't have the power that the world thinks that they do. They don't actually have the amount of power that we like to try to ascribe to them sometimes. And I think we need to, as Christians, we need to hold fast to the fact that there is nothing that can come against us if we are grounded and rooted in the Word of God and grounded and rooted in our relationship with Him, the Almighty. Because the Almighty is not going to let anything happen.
With each other.
Yep.
Exactly right.
Vicky, she mentioned like her whole thing about Psalm 91 and constantly reading that. And when we were on the phone together, one of the things she mentioned was like, imagine, and I'm pretty sure she said it on a few of the shows too. It's like basically imagine you're like in a camp, right? And actually, I think she said it on your show. Imagine you're in a camp, right? In like an old military camp with the tents, there, and you're in one tent, off drinking, doing whatever. You're still under God's protection, but it's going to take Him a little bit longer to get there because you're not in His tent.
Yeah.
And, and I sent you the message about, we were talking about Matthew 24.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'd gotten from that was, you don't want to be doing something wrong when the, the time comes. Could you imagine being in that moment, doing something wrong, and in that moment, Jesus comes to you?
Yeah.
And, it's like, you don't want to be doing something wrong. So it's like, we're going to sin. We're going to mess up. You're not always going to be in Jesus' tent, but you should strive to always be in that tent. You should strive to always be at that table because, like you said, we are surrounded. You're sitting at the table, and it's like, I think about that, and I'm like, that's how a lot of times life is. You're just constantly surrounded by things you cannot see, things you might be able to sense and feel, but for the most part, you can't interact with them. You can't see it. But it's always happening around you. The battle between good and evil is always going on around you. And again, like I see with the modem, that the bad forces dropped the water down. Jesus had my back. I don't know if he personally did or if he had one of his angels come and do it.
Yeah,
but I know. Yeah. It's like there's that Old Testament. It almost reminds me of that Old Testament verse, actually. Now that I literally see what I mean? Like we were saying, like I was taking notes and things just started coming to my head, right? So I started taking notes. This just came to my head now. I don't know what passage it is, but it's about God wanted him to go and gather his armies and go to battle, and he's like, do you actually want me to do this, or do you not want me to do this? This morning I want the cloth to be soaked, but the ground to be dry around it. And then the next morning, the ground to be soaked, but the cloth to be dry. Gideon. Okay, thank you. Reminds me of that in that sense, right? Like it was like the modem was soaked, but right under it was all dry. Mm. So that picture of that was just kind of in my head. So it's like the more and more I read, like there's just all these weird scriptures start popping in my head. And
the more that you have it in your mind, right? That's why they say that the Word of God is living and active. Yeah, it's living and active. It can move in an instant like that, where as long as you are in the Word and you're putting it in your mind, He can bring it back to your remembrance, right? You can remember it, but only if it's in there. Mm-hmm. It's like having a thumb drive. If it's an empty thumb drive, you can put it in your computer as many times as you want, but there's nothing on it, bro. Yeah. But if you can load the Bible onto there, then you have access to it everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. And that memory stick is here. You have it here. You can always have the Bible in your mind and in your heart. And that's the beauty of, like the Book of Eli, that movie where he basically memorizes the Bible. Yeah. And there's all these version too. Yeah. And that's the type of thing where you have a renewed strength, a renewed mindset where nothing can come against you because the Word of God is continually flowing in you and through you. And it's living and active, and you can get the answers that you need in a moment's notice through the Holy Spirit by bringing those to your remembrance. But again, if you're not in it, it's not in you. And that's the problem.
Well, and the Bible also says out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it's relational too, because when you apply that to relationships, if you're Rick struggles with anger. Like that's always been an issue for him, which I think is probably for most men. But, he's trying to, when he does have those like flare ups of anger, it's like, well, if he's focusing on scripture and it is living and active, it tends to be under better control, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And
because I have to take all thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. And even in my anger, they have to be captive. It doesn't get to run rampant.
No, and that's one part of the reasons like I quit drinking was it wasn't anger while I was drinking, it was anger the next day. Like even if it was just one drink, I woke up miserable and I'm miserable to everybody around me, and I was just like, okay, like I can't keep doing this. Like it was just like, I'm not really enjoying it like I thought I was going to be enjoying it, and then I wake up the next day and I'm miserable, and then I'm miserable the whole day. And then the next day I'm thinking about how miserable I was the day before. And now I have to be all
like a domino.
And then I got to be all apologetic to everybody because I'm like, oh, sorry for being, miserable because I had one beer the night before. And, it's like, it just became this vicious cycle that I was just like, I finally realized it. And I was like, okay, done. Enough of that, right? Like it was, and it wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy. Like tonight, the Leaf game is on. Are they gonna blow another, thing to Game 7 to Boston the Bruins? For the third time in the last decade. I don't know. But it's like I would love to sit there and have a beer while watching the game, but it's just like I know that tomorrow I would just be miserable. So it's a very hard thing. So it's just Jesus, like take this away. Like I don't want to feel like this. And I literally, and I never understood it until recently and I have a hard time even trying to describe it, but like when I like focus on Jesus, I always heard about put your focus on Jesus. And I was like, I am focusing, but it was like literally just a couple weeks ago that I just had this, like, it was almost like, I don't want to say meditative state, but I was able to focus for the first time on just one thing. Because my mind, like I'll be having 3 or 4 thoughts, going at the same time, and they're just switching every, split second. So I got a million different things going on in my head at any instant, which is why like my girl, she's just like, oh, don't keep them for like 10 hours, like, cause she just knows like I can just go and go and go and go and go, like an Energizer bunny. And so it was always been hard for me to put my focus just on Jesus. But there's been moments over the last couple of weeks that I've just been able to finally do that. Just give it my whole focus when I'm in prayer. And just, even if it's just a quick 2-minute, good morning. Thank you for letting me wake up. Thank you for keeping us protected, Lord. Please help guide me throughout my day today. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Boom. But in that like 30 seconds, like I'm more focused in that 30 seconds than I am any other time throughout the day. And so I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments along my journey that I've been able to do is just finally be able to put my focus into him.
That's awesome.
And it's been helpful. The things have been relatively quiet around here, except for, again, my car, going home on me yesterday.
We'll have to check in on you in a couple of days.
That's our fault. We asked you to be on another podcast.
I know.
So we take full responsibility.
But I love it. And I contact you guys all the time, right? It's the same. I can't say it enough. The community that you guys build and the different shows, and Justin and Vicky and the boys at Sober build, even Bo, from the Lump podcast, right? Like it's
good dude.
Even he and I have talked. Josh Monday from his podcast, he and I talked, and like it's just this community, and I like we were saying before, like once you start to find people, the Lord will just put more and more people in your way to help you along your way, and you guys have been great with me, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
We appreciate you, man. We love having conversations with people that are just real, and that's what you are. You're real, and you're willing to talk about your struggles. You're willing to talk about the things in life that are hard, and a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's the barrier to relationship, unfortunately, right? Is not being able to be real and talk through these problems. But we appreciate you coming on.
And letting people know that this stuff doesn't come at no cost.
Right.
You have had spiritual attacks after, during, before, all of this stuff happens. And so I think letting people know that, hey, I'm willing to put my story out there, but, just keep me in your prayers, because it happens to us all the time. And it now that we know it, it's kind of like, we just kind of laugh about it a little bit more. But at the beginning, it was like, why are we fighting so much? Oh,
yeah, we've only just
podcast episode is doing really well.
We've almost shut this podcast down a couple times just because of the full-on attacks that have come in every direction. But that's the thing, is pushing through the pain, through the storm. Jesus, when he's praying in the garden, and he's sweating blood because he's so stressed out that he's about to go climb on to a cross, he asks his brothers in arms, his closest confidants, to just stay awake for a little bit so that he feels comforted that he has somebody there with him. And they couldn't do it. They kept falling asleep. And he comes over and gently says, your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak. And that has been such a powerful thing to me lately, is the fact that my spirit, your spirit, Kristin's spirit, everybody's spirit is so willing to have this relationship with Jesus, so willing to be there with him in the garden and be like, we got your back, Jesus. We're here with you. And then we all run away like they did. We all fall asleep because our flesh is weak. And that's the message that we try to get out, is we have to look around and realize that this storm that we're in right now is a season. And if we push through that storm and we get to the other side of it, it's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful life that we're all going to live together in harmony and unity, because we realize that this world is more than war. It's more than money. It's more than corruption. And, it's more than all of that. And once we get there, it's going to be hard. We're going to have to push through, and it's going to, some of us might even lose relationships, might even have to cut off long time relationships that are just toxic.
Yep.
But it's hard. But we have to. If we say that Jesus is our king, then if our flesh is weak, we need to beat it down. We need to get it to where it is in submission to our spirit, because our spirit is what we should be following.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny too. Well, I shouldn't say funny, but it reminds me of how, the disciples were all killed. These guys were, brutally killed for following Jesus, and it's like, and sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, I give into my flesh so easily with certain things, especially with gluttony with food, because I love to eat, and it's like, in a moment of like, would I be beheaded? Would I, want to be crucified upside down?
Right.
For my belief, it's like, I try to think like, okay, like I'm a wimp compared to these followers, and I've got some work to do. I've got some definite work to do.
Well, and it's good to remember that, we talk a lot about, the fringy stuff and the demonic stuff and all of that, but just as much as they're working against us, we have a whole army of people and spirits and other things working for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did this thing, like, I don't know, months ago, where it was like this very specific prayer that I saw on a thing on Instagram that was like, pray this for your husband instead of this. And it was like praying for an angel of, like a warrior angel to come like do battle in him, and it was like within a couple of days he had this very strange, like, he's not an emotional person, but he like just had this, I don't know, breakdown or something. It was like, it was so clear to me that there was an angel doing battle in him in some way, and I don't even know what all was going on, but I knew that it was happening. Rick knew that it was happening. And I feel like we've had a lot of moments like that since. So we have to also, as much as, yes, these things are all demonic and are around us all the time, we also have to remember the other side and call upon those, entities to come and help you in moments of weakness, because we can't do it on our own. We're not able to do it by ourselves.
Yep. I would love to be able to, one day, cast out demons. Like, if I could do deliverance, that'd be cool. But that's just more of like my curiosity, I guess, because the things that I've seen, in the past, it's like, I don't know if I'd want to really do that type of battle. You know, like I do enough of my own stuff. I'm just like, but it's I don't know. I just thought just kind of came to my mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, this has been fun, Brady. For sake of time, we're gonna probably close this one, but. Sure. Man, just so glad to see that you're doing well and everybody's doing well over there, that you were able to connect with some others in the community and get some help that you needed. That's so awesome. And I pray that if there's anybody else out there that's maybe struggling or hasn't, just reach out. This is a community of love and support. Yep. And if you're having any issues, whether it be suicidal ideations or struggling with your family or your children are feeling oppressed, there's lots of people that can help. And, just reach out. We have our email address is that's so fringy at gmail.com. You can get onto our website and send an email from there, or you can contact us on Instagram or on the Fringy chat over on Telegram. Guys, there's so many ways that you can connect with us. If you have any questions for Brady or you want to connect with Brady, where can they find you, Brady? Is there any way you'd want people to connect with you?
You can send me a message on Instagram. I keep it private, just for, personal reasons. Yeah. I did have some unfortunate people reach out, after our last couple shows. So, I had to change my name on Instagram to something else. But anyway, so if you ever, you want to get in touch with me, it's, knuckledragger_BR. And, awesome. So you can send me a message on there. It's the only thing that I have nowadays. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope you get inundated with prayers and support.
Yeah. And, if anybody's, dealing with some mental health issues, like, I want to say, especially for Canadians, MAID is not the way to go. Don't do it. That was one of the things I was going to bring up, and it just came to me now when you were talking about this thing. 2 minutes, really quick.
You're good.
In Canada, now you can get medically assisted suicide for mental health disorders. So even if you're just depressed and down, don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do not fall into that trap. I read a stat the other day. There was like almost 14,000 of them in 2022. Jeez. We went from like 1,000 in 2016 to 13,000 a year. And it keeps climbing because of the way the world is. Don't do it. Yep. Reach out. There's so many ways to, get through it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, I just wanted to throw that.
No, you're good, man.
But reach out to you guys. Like I said, you guys have been great with me, and I really appreciate that. The community. I love the community.
Yeah.
So
awesome,
thank you guys.
All right, my fringy friends, this has been a conversation with Brady, and we've had such a good time. We're hoping to connect with him again. If, like he said, reach out if you're having any issues or anything. Get a hold of us, get a hold of him. We'd love to talk with you. But for today, we're going to get out of here. We love you guys, each and every one of you, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We'll talk to you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.